It looks like Microsoft's working on a new controller, and it kind of makes a lot of sense. Microsoft appears to be working on a new controller. No, we're not talking about another Elite Series controller, and especially not the Core that was just released here this holiday shopping season. It looks like Microsoft is working on a new controller that has potentially a dedicated screen. So let's just dive into the details here. So this is a patent drawing from Microsoft about a new controller that they are working on. Now here, what you can see obviously is a big, large screen up at the top, and then the traditional sort of Xbox layout. Obviously, they had to bring some of the buttons down in the middle, like the Xbox button, the back, and the context menu button. At least I think that's what they're all called. Slide those down a little bit, but it looks like a classic Xbox controller, but with potentially a screen or a notification area or something up top. Now, couple things that jump out right away. Obviously, adding a screen or whatever they're doing up there probably isn't reducing the cost of the controller. And Microsoft sells these controllers really all over the board. Obviously, you have the very high end with the Elite Series 2, the all-in bundle for about $179 dues, depending on where you find it. And I've seen these controllers, just basic controllers, as cheap as about $29 to $39 on Amazon when you have crazy discounts, but typically they're retailing for somewhere around $59 to $69, and I don't think adding a screen is going to lower that price anytime soon. But it's sort of an interesting thing, because it's like, okay, if Microsoft is adding a screen to their controller, what are they going to be using it for? Well, here's a sort of an interesting demo or potential usage scenario about why that could be interesting. You can see right there, they're showing a very clear notification up on the controller saying it's paired with the local gaming system. And that makes a lot of sense, makes it easier to understand. Also, if you have multi-controllers connected to a console, like when I play Minecraft Dungeons with my daughter, you could have a number 1, a number 2, or your profile picture there. That way you can help separate which controller is number 1 and which one is number 2. Obviously, first and second player becomes pretty obvious with a functionality like this. You could potentially see like achievements or maybe friend messages or something like that. It's really, without knowing like the actual specs of that display, because I'm guessing it's going to be probably pretty low resolution. I can't imagine Microsoft's going to try to slam like a 1080p display or 720p. I bet we're looking at 480p probably, and at best potentially, or it could just be an e-ink display for all that we know. Now, the really interesting scenario, and why I actually think that this drawing or this patent might actually ship, becomes with this little bit of information here. Read that notification carefully. Paired with remote, I would say remote cloud gaming system. So if you think about it, Microsoft is obviously pushing cloud gaming, and obviously Microsoft wants to find direct connections between the controller and the cloud. I am super curious. This is the Stadia controller, and one of the unique things that the Stadia controller did was connected directly to Wi-Fi and connected effectively, quote unquote, directly to the cloud, right? It didn't have to go through an Xbox, it didn't have to go through a dongle or a TV. It connected directly to the cloud, and I am starting to wonder if what we are looking at right here is actually Microsoft's iteration that's going to connect directly to the cloud. And they could use that notification screen to let you know that it's actually working. Think about it from this scenario too. You just bought one of those fancy, dancy new Samsung TVs that has xCloud built in, or Xbox Cloud Gaming. I still want to call it xCloud. And yes, it does, I believe, work with a Bluetooth controller, but imagine being able to go to Best Buy and just grabbing a controller, you turn it on, it connects directly to your Wi-Fi. And remember, you're going to need a screen more than likely. I guess they could do it potentially with a phone, but doing it directly on device would be a superior path. You're going to need to be able to enter your Wi-Fi password, and then you could connect it to your account and be connected with your Samsung fancy schmancy TV and have lower latency while playing Xbox Cloud Gaming. Now there's a lot of things that have to happen to really just kind of extrapolate what I said. I personally believe that it would actually be easier if that thing just had a USB-C connection on it. You plugged it into your PC and did it that way. Mac PC, I don't know about iPad, but you figure most people either have a Mac, a PC, or some sort of device that they can connect to. And that would probably reduce that onboarding friction significantly. But Microsoft might just be going all in and saying, like, look, we want to create an experience that's on the controller only, as seamless as possible. They can probably assume that you have a smartphone and maybe do some Bluetooth pairing that way, download the Xbox app, connect up your device. We already see that a little bit with if you've set up an Xbox console recently, you just connect it in, and then you can do some fancy schmancy syncing, and you never actually have to touch the device to completely set up. It's pretty slick, and that could be a precursor to how Microsoft is planning to do this with the controller. Otherwise, we don't see too much different here from a standard Xbox controller. Obviously, the screen is massively different, but if you look, the thumbsticks are still offset. The D-pad is exactly where you would expect it to be. The only thing that I'm noticing is potentially that outer ring of the right thumbstick is a little bit closer to the buttons than I typically anticipate for an Xbox controller, but that is, I don't know. I don't think it's going to impact things too much. Remember, with the latest generation of Xbox controller, by the way, the one that ships with the Series S and X, it is actually a little bit smaller. Microsoft, remember, made a big deal about that, how it will now work with more paws, more dirty paws. And so the gross, weird thumbs aside, you can see how Microsoft anticipates a user holding the controller. Not all that surprising there. But I am curious. Now, the obvious downside, and a lot of comments were like, well, they'll just put ads in there. And, well, it is Microsoft at the end of the day, and that would be a horrific experience if they actually do that. I don't think Microsoft is that brain dead to be able to actually do that. But they're going to do something with it. And it looks like this product might actually make it out of sort of their incubation labs, if you will, because obviously they're patenting it. Microsoft has a really rich history of patenting things like this. They come out public and then they ship the product. Surface Studio, actually a lot of the Surface products very much fall into this. And I know Xbox and Surface are different orgs, so they do things differently. But I think Microsoft is going to be seriously pursuing the capacity and ability to connect directly to the cloud via the controller. It's the natural next step to do the best of their ability to lower the latency for that type of an experience. And considering how much they're willing to spend on Activision, assuming they can get that through at the $70 billion price tag, they're going to need this experience to be as good as possible. And this seems like I would not say trivial, because obviously building hardware and the experience all costs money, and it's a risk that people may not buy these things. But I think it's a smart move, and I think it's the right move. The question becomes, like, when is this thing going to come to market? And also, the other thing that sits in the back of my head, Phil Spencer notably said they canceled or delayed the Keystone, right? Remember that thing was supposed to be coming out because it was going to be that direct connection to the cloud and all that. If you build a controller that can do that natively, do you need the Keystone? Like, seriously, do you need the Keystone at that point? Because it's all built into the controller. They can partner with TV manufacturers, and I think that short circuits some of the complexity and cost, honestly, of having to do that. I think it is much easier to justify and say, hey, you want a cloud connected controller? $89, and you're done. All you need to do is bring a browser, bring a TV that's already supporting it, bring a whatever, and there you go. And so I think that might be the missing piece to the whole narrative of the Keystone story about why it was delayed. Microsoft hasn't, I don't believe, officially said canceled, but it doesn't look like it's coming anytime soon. So there you go. Is this the missing piece of the Keystone story? Either way, I think we will see this thing eventually as Microsoft continues to push forward with cloud gaming. And as always, to stay updated on everything else that's happening in the world of Xbox, Microsoft, and beyond, keep it subscribed here, because the only BS on this channel is me.